On this week's podcast, I am celebrating 50 episodes, and it's all thanks to you. Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. I am your host, Jason, and this week, this podcast is my 50th podcast. For 50 straight weeks, I've been recording a podcast and sharing it with you. Now, most have been solo episodes, talking about things I enjoy, things I like doing in the outdoors, and some have been with some guests that I brought on, where they've talked about events, talked about their achievements, talked about accomplishments, and it's all come to this point, number 50. There were times this year that I wasn't sure I was going to have time to record a podcast with 3 small kids, my wife's work schedule, and then all the normal daily things one needs to do. It was difficult at times, but I made sure to make some time to talk to you each week, and it's something that I have looked forward to doing each week. I'm told through other podcasters and other forums and things that I follow that a weekly podcast to reach 50 episodes is a pretty big deal and should be celebrated. It's a big commitment, and to be able to do it week in and week out is something that you should be proud of and you should celebrate. So that's what I'm doing this week. On this week's episode, I'm going to celebrate that with you. I wanted to take a little time away from what I normally do and reflect on those 50 episodes and maybe talk about what the future holds for the podcast. I mean, because after all, it's because of you that I enjoy doing this podcast. I started this podcast as a way to reach out and connect to you. My goal with Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer has always been to provide you with ideas to get you outside no matter what the activity. You know, I always talk about hiking and fishing, but it's more than that. It's even just going for a walk or gardening. This whole thing started out as just an Instagram page, just to show you images from around the state and things that you can see, and it slowly evolved into a website. But after that, I wanted more. I wanted a way to reach out to you in a more personal way, and that's why I started the podcast. It was a way for me to give Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer a voice and a way to reach out to new people and share ideas with you directly. And it also allowed me to give you a little taste of my personality and the things that I enjoy doing as well. And it expanded what I can do with Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer. And what I really liked about the podcast was it allowed me to bring in other people from throughout the state to talk about their experiences and talk about what they're doing and events that are going on. And it opened up a whole new world to what we can do together. It's been a short journey so far, but I have learned a ton. I always knew Wisconsin had a lot of things to offer, but I never really knew how many things that were out there that can be seen and done. And the more I do this, the more I'm finding out that there's this organization and that activity, and there's so many great things that I want to discover and try and share with you since I've been doing this. And the biggest enemy for me right now has been time. And I think we can all relate to that time just goes by so quickly that it's so hard to get all this done. But the other thing, I have been really impressed with the stories out there that need to be told. I mean, I've told a few stories, but there's a lot of stories out there that I want to tell and a lot of people that I want to talk to. It's just a matter of getting them lined up and getting them on the show. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to. So there's a lot of people out there doing some remarkable things in our state, and reading about them and learning about them just motivates me more to reach out and share their stories with you in hopes that they can motivate you and encourage you to get outdoors. This journey hasn't been easy. I have made a bunch of mistakes along the way, and if you go listen to my first handful of podcasts, I started out with an idea of doing this podcast as kind of a drive home type podcast. I was going to record the podcast while I was driving home from work and just kind of talk about some of my ideas that way, because it was a short 20-minute drive, and I've always wanted to keep this podcast under 30 minutes, so it worked out perfect. But the problem was the audio quality was poor, and I was really kind of unfocused, which is understandable. So my advice to you is if you're going to start a podcast, don't do it in the car. Then I decided to start using the blog page a little bit more to help me focus on my topics. And it gives me kind of an outline for my podcast. So using the blog page, I was able to write down my ideas, write down my thoughts, and then take those ideas and thoughts and use them in the podcast. And it allowed me to keep my podcast more on point, and I think and hope it's provided you with better content. I've made some upgrades to equipment. My audio is a lot better. You don't have a lot of the noise distractions going on. I've learned how to use some audio editing programs that I didn't know how to use before. I'm still far from perfect on any of this, but I think my shows are much better, and I hope you think that too. And I'm seeing that as the audience grows, with every episode. But if you go back and listen to my first few shows, I think you're going to agree that there has been a definite improvement. And there's things that I still want to improve on. I'm still working on finding better locations around my house to actually record the podcast, so it's a little quieter. I'm working on better ways to record interviews and make those clearer and more, so that you can hear them better. There's always improving going on, and that's kind of what I've enjoyed about this process a little bit as well. I'm a bit of a gearhead, a bit of a techie guy, so being able to take some of that geekiness that I have and put it into the podcast has been kind of fun for me. The other thing that I really enjoyed this first year was starting to add the interviews. At first, it was a solo show. And it wasn't until, after the first couple weeks of the new year that I decided to bring in some interviews and try to incorporate more people into the show. And I've really enjoyed that part of being able to talk to people and organizations and find out what they're doing in Wisconsin. And it's really been kind of rewarding to talk with them and get their feedback of how they feel the show has helped them out as well. So I hope you're getting something out of those interviews, because I really enjoy them, and there's going to be more in the future. I know there's a lot of great stories that need to be told, and honestly, I want to be the one to tell them. I'm always looking for better ways to reach out and interact with people and make them comfortable with the podcast process. The podcast process is still relatively new to people, so getting them comfortable with talking to me and relaying their information to you is a little bit of a process, but so far I think it's going well. People are open to it, and I think you're going to see in the next few years how more and more people are more comfortable with doing podcasts. I've learned that this is a process where you never stop learning or improving, and I'm hoping that that's coming out in each of my episodes. Now, speaking of episodes, I couldn't celebrate my 50th episode without at least sharing a few of my favorite episodes with you. The first favorite episode I had, and I'm going to put links to this in the show notes so you'll be able to go back and listen to these episodes. One of my earliest ones was episode 8, It's Not About the Deer. I talked about why I don't deer hunt anymore and why I kind of stopped. It wasn't about the deer hunting. It was about the family that I was hunting with and how they were getting older and getting out of deer hunting. And that was the first episode that I really received any real feedback from people who felt the same way I did, honestly, that deer hunting wasn't as fun as it used to be. And a lot of it was because the people they hunted with just weren't around anymore. So that one really motivated me to keep going. There's a lot of statistics out there that when people start podcasts, usually they get to episode 7 and they quit doing it because they're not getting any feedback or anything like that. Now, I knew I was committed long before that, but getting feedback already at episode 8 was really important for me and motivated me to keep going. And that to me was like a really important episode. The next episode I had a lot of fun with was episode 20. It's Let's Go Snowshoeing. And it highlighted our family's first snowshoeing adventure. And those of you with kids will understand how that can be a little bit crazy at times. And I wanted to share that with you. And I think it came across as kind of being a little bit crazy and a little bit fun. And how it's not always easy to get out in the outdoors with kids. But it's still important. And in the long run, we all learned a lot. We all gained a lot. And I think it made me and my wife more excited about doing snowshoeing this year. And I think the kids are going to follow suit. So that was a fun episode for me. One of my first interview episodes that really took off was episode 24, the Fat Tire Biking and Lambo Riders. I learned so much. It got me so excited that it's something that I put on my bucket list. And that episode continues today to still get a lot of downloads. And it was just a great interview, and I hope to talk to them again soon. It's a really good episode. It was a really good interview. And if you haven't listened to that one, again, there's links to it, and you need to go check that out. Another one that I really liked was episode 27, the 365-day outdoor challenge, where I talked to Keith Ulig, and he had made it his mission to get outside for 15 minutes every day for at least 1 year. And honestly, it's a challenge he still does today, so he is well beyond that year mark. It was my first interview where I actually sat face-to-face with him. Most of my interviews are done over the phone, and this was the first time that I actually sat face-to-face with somebody. And it was such a wonderful conversation. We talked for over an hour, and it was just a great time. And he really motivated me to really push myself to keep getting outside. And I hope that that's what you got across that episode as well, that just to keep pushing, to keep getting outside no matter what. Don't make the excuses. Just get out there and enjoy the outdoors. But probably my favorite episode was episode 38, the Toma Experience. Now, I know this one didn't relate to a lot of people because it had to do with the Toma tractor pull, but it was the first time that I brought one of my children onto the show to share their experience. For me, that was really kind of a neat thing to have my daughter there talking about the things that she saw and she liked. It brought a new perspective to the show. I'm hoping it brought a new perspective to maybe some of you out there with kids about getting them out there and trying new things with them. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to, as my kids get older, bringing them into the show a little bit more and having them talk about the things that they are experiencing and seeing for the first time. And again, I'm going to put links to all these shows in the show notes so that you'll be able to go back and listen to them and, let me know what you think about it. After 50 episodes, where do I go from here? My goal for the next 50 is honestly more interviews. I really want to find others throughout the state who want to share their stories, and I want to bring their stories to you. I want to talk to people who are doing events, small events to big events, so that you have choices and options out there that you can go and do. I'm going to still continue to share my experiences because I think that's important to give you a perspective from somebody who's doing it. It's easy to sit here and tell you that this event is fun and all that, but there's really something to be said for going out there and sharing that experience with you. I'm going to bring you more reviews. I really want to bring you more reviews about more state parks, more events. I think that's important because I'm not going to sugarcoat events. Nobody's paying me to do these things, so I'm going to give you the honest opinion about what I think of events and places. If they're good for families, if they're good for couples, I'm going to tell you that because I want you to be well informed about things you can do in this state. And I want to give you enough information about things happening throughout the state so that you can plan to be one of Wisconsin's outdoor explorers. That's the whole goal. I want everybody to be a Wisconsin outdoor explorer. And by giving you the information that I can give you is going to allow you to make better decisions on the things you want to do throughout the state. I want to wrap this up by saying thank you for going on this journey with me. It has been a lot of fun, and it still is a lot of fun for me. We're going to continue on and do another 50 episodes, and we'll probably celebrate that as well, but I'm really looking forward to continuing this process, and I hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, reach out to me, leave me a comment, let me know how I'm doing. If you've got ideas for me, let me know. The feedback is great. I've got the Facebook group going now so we can discuss podcasts. Join the group. Let's keep the discussion rolling about Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer, and let's grow this together because honestly, this is for you. This isn't for me. This is for you so that you can get out and enjoy the Wisconsin outdoors. Thanks again for 50 great episodes, and I am really, really looking forward to spending the next 50 with you. Thanks again for joining me. I'm your host, Jason, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. For more great information about being an outdoor explorer, visit our website at wisconsinsoutdoorexplorer.com. Be sure to check out the blog page and follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.